former FBI top negotiation expert in the world, Chris Voss.
As a world expert in all forms of negotiation, the author of a phenomenal best-selling book entitled
Never Split the Difference.
Never Split the Difference.
Master hostage negotiator.
Founder and the CEO of the Black Swan Group. He teaches business negotiating
as if your life depended on it.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Meet the CEOs. Today I'm joined by former FBI hostage negotiator Chris Voss. He has persuaded the terrorists, bank robbers and kidnappers to see things his way. Now he's running the Black Swan Group and consults with businesses all around the world on negotiations. He's the author of Never Split the Difference, which has sold more than 3 million copies. And he's considered to be one of the world's top negotiators. So we're very happy to have him on the show today. I've actually gathered some questions from some of the members in the Executive Network as well. If you're not a member of the Executive Network, please join today and be part of future conversations like this. So let's head into the interview. All right, so hey everybody, today I'm joined by Chris Voss to talk a little bit about negotiation and how to use negotiation tactics for specifically B2B complex deals. So thank you very much, Chris, for joining us today.
Yeah, Daniel, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me in.
So, I mean, I'm excited to hear your thoughts about negotiations specifically for private like deal making. But I thought it would be interesting for our the people listening to this to just hear some of the background to you started your career at the FBI. How did you end up there in the first place?
Well, I was a police officer in Kansas City, Missouri, and I joined the police department right after I got out of college. And my father encouraged me to look at federal law enforcement. So I did and talked to a guy with the United States Secret Service, and he was telling me with federal law enforcement, he traveled all over the world. And I grew up in Iowa, Midwestern United States, small town. I hadn't been anywhere. I mean, really, I'd barely been out of Iowa. And I thought that someone would give me a job where I'd travel all over the world really intrigued me. As it turned out, the Secret Service was not hiring at the time. The FBI was. I put in my application and became an FBI agent.
All right. And when was this?
Well, it was last century, man. It was a long time ago. Right. I'm scared to tell you.
All right. And I mean, and then you started your business, the Black Swan Group. What was the backstory to that decision?
Yeah, well, I just my career ran its course with the FBI. I worked in a couple of offices, Pittsburgh, New York, headquarters, and became a full-time hostage negotiator. I'd originally been on the SWAT team, became a hostage negotiator, and then worked international kidnapping. I ran all of our international kidnapping response the last 7 years of my career. And while I was there, and I did some negotiation training at Harvard Law School. And at Harvard, the people up there said, like, look, you're doing the same thing in hostage negotiation that we do in business. The stakes are different, but the dynamics are the same. And, that's what really convinced me that my the thoughts and ideas from hostage negotiation would apply to business. So I left the FBI and set out on that journey, really. I retired from the FBI and started teaching business negotiation in business schools. I taught at Georgetown in the McDonough School of Business. I actually taught at Harvard Law School. I taught at USC's Marshall School of Business, University of Southern California. And the ideas worked. For the business school students, negotiating business deals every day. They took the stuff that I taught them from hostage negotiation, which now is the Black Swan method, and it worked really great. So after teaching in business schools for a couple of years, myself and Tal Raz, and then with collaboration with my son, Brandon Voss, the three of us wrote Never Split the Difference together, a book about business negotiating, and it's done really well.
All right. And the clients you work with, are they like all types of clients or any specific types of companies or industries?
it's just really a coachable entrepreneurial mindset. You know, there are entrepreneurial people within corporations, but people who like to be innovative, people who are ambitious. You know, I learned about the characteristic of ambition a few years ago after collaborating with Masterclass. I got a negotiation course on the Masterclass platform, which is their top-selling course. And they were telling me that, you know, their best clients are ambitious people. And I paid attention to, if you're ambitious by definition, you like to be innovative. You like new and different things. You like to be on the cutting edge. So if you're ambitious and you like to be innovative, those are the type of people that learn fastest from my methodology of negotiation.
So let's dive into some of the key concepts from your book. So you talk a bit about tactical empathy.
Right.
Can you tell us what that is and why it's important in negotiations?
You know, empathy is just people smarts. It's emotional intelligence. And we put the word tactical in front of it because using it, the concepts of neuroscience, really, it's very, very much based in the neuroscience realities of how the brain works, how to deactivate negative feelings, how to encourage positive feelings, the impact that it has on somebody when they feel heard, how much more agreeable they are. And this is people across the board, even human beings, even the impact of my tone of voice. This is all sort of grounded in neuroscience, and it's empathy that's calibrated with the concepts of neuroscience. And it's really about how do you transmit information to someone so they feel heard, not so you make a better argument, but what's the impact on somebody when you actually feel heard? And as I said a moment ago, how much more agreeable and less greedy they are once they feel heard. And it tends to be sometimes almost astonishing on how it accelerates deals.
Right. And another thing I picked up from your book, I've actually read it twice. So, I mean, in the sales world where I kind of come from, we are kind of trained from the get-go to always talk about yes and to never mention the word no. But you talk about how to master no. Can you take us through your thinking about that?
Sure. Both the words yes and no, like many things in negotiation, depends upon which side of it you're on. Like we human beings love to hear yes, and we hate to say it. We love to say no, and we hate to hear it. So if you hate to say yes, I'm not going to try to get you to say yes. I know you're going to feel concerned, anxious, uncomfortable. What are you letting yourself in for? You know, the whole yes momentum strategy, also known as momentum selling, where each yes is a micro agreement or a tie down. Well, what does it do to you to start to feel tied down? You start to worry about what you've gotten yourself into. What invisible commitments have you made? How have you been trapped by yes? So the first thing that I can do in order to not create that problem is not get you to say yes at all. And it begins to eliminate some of your anxiety. And back in 2002, Jim Camp wrote a book called Start With No. And he just pointed out, tell somebody that it's okay to say no. As soon as you sit down and say, you know, you can say no to me at any time. You can tell me you can say no and tell me go away and I'll leave. And Camp found that people were far more agreeable once they were told that they could say no. Camp used to call it preserving their right to veto, which is somebody's autonomy. So we decided to take it a step farther. What happens if you get people to actually say no? Well, we love to say no. What happens when we say no? You feel safe and protected. If you feel safe and protected, you listen more. You're more open to ideas. So we really took that a step farther and said, you know, instead of saying, do you have a few minutes to talk? We say, is now a bad time to talk? Instead of saying, do you agree? We say, do you disagree? I mean, once you start flipping into the reality of how safe people feel when they say no, then you just change your questions and people are much more collaborative because you made them feel safe.
Right. And another thing I wonder, I mean, moving on a little bit more specific to how this applies to like sales and deal making. So I think everybody who has done any kind of deal experienced it to some extent that you're close to the finish line, and something just appears, which I would call, after reading your book, a black swan. So I mean, dealing with unforeseen circumstances just when you think you're done. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, and the black swans, which actually give you the opportunity to make a better deal. Now, they've probably been indicators that they're there all along. I read a phrase recently that it said it's not the red flags, it's the yellow flags. My colleague Derek Gone, I'm trying to think of the term that he uses. But, you know, the subtle things, you know, they kind of been hinting at themselves all along. And so the idea of the black swan method really is, how do you get at those sooner? Knowing they're there. They're always there. There's always stuff you don't know. There's always stuff you're holding back, important information that you're afraid if the other side had it, that it would change everything to your disadvantage. Well, it has a possibility of changing it to your advantage if you can trust them. So that means they're holding stuff back too. And many times they're afraid to bring it up till the very end. Well, how do you create an environment where it comes out sooner? You learn it sooner. You make a better deal sooner. Some of it is getting people to say no early on. When you say to somebody early in a deal, you say, you know, does this look like a stupid idea? Does this look ridiculous? Does this look impossible? Even exaggerate the difficulty by a no-oriented question. Frequently what you'll hear back was like, no, it's not impossible, but here are the problems. And the black swans begin to come out sooner. That's the one time the word but is not a bad word. No, but here's the problems. People are very honest with you about those problems. Now, if you've been trying to get them to say yes, you've probably been getting like, yes, yeah. You know, these hesitating yeses. Well, that's an indicator of black swans underneath, hidden information, yellow flags. So somebody gives you a yes. You know, what I would teach you to do is just put what we call a label on it and say, it sounds like something's bothering you, or sounds like there's something there that you haven't felt like you could trust me with yet. You know, you start to label their affect, if you will, put a verbal observation on it. You try to get those black swans to come out sooner. And the sooner they come out, the sooner you make a good deal, and the sooner you get a deal that you can actually implement.
So do you think people in general are kind of too afraid of sharing information?
Yeah, because they're used to being trapped by it, or they're afraid of whether or not they could trust you. Like, what are you going to do with that really impactful information? Or have you even earned it yet? How have you earned my trust? Have you listened to me? Are you the kind of person that is sort of the gotcha listener? Like, aha, I got you. You know, here's where you made a mistake. Or what a lot of salespeople do, it's kind of the gotcha thing. They ask you a question, and your question is going to give them any one of three answers. And as soon as they hear what they're waiting for, they're like, aha, I've got that solution. And it's almost a gotcha. There was never a point in time when you actually listened to them, or they actually listened to you. So this is getting to actually listening, because even if you have the answers, if you haven't shown me that you're listening to me by interacting with me and being present, I'm not going to trust you.
Right. Another thing I found very interesting is when you talk about anchoring. Could you just take us through what is that, and how do you use it in negotiations?
Well, yeah, we don't use price anchors. We really use emotional anchors. And there's a big difference. Like, I never ask for more than I want. You know, I find that it drives deals from the table. Extreme anchoring, if you will, over price or even over terms, that diminishes relationships. It drives deals from the table. Yes, of the deals that you make, it skews those in your favor, and it also damages a relationship for you long term. So the anchoring that we use is more emotional anchoring. And what do I mean by emotional anchoring? Before I give you a price, I'm going to say, look, it's a lot. I'm asking a lot. You're probably going to think I'm being greedy. You're probably going to think I don't deserve it. I'm probably going to ask for more than you ever expected to pay. What I'm doing there is emotional anchoring. I'm preparing you for my position, which is going to be legitimate. But what I want my position to be is a relief, because I know if I say to you, look, I'm going to sound greedy. This is going to be more expensive than you ever thought of paying. Whatever number you come up with, 9 times out of 10, the number you come up with is going to be much higher or much worse than my actual ask is. Now, in the unlikely event, it's equal to it. In the past, I've said when I've talked about the Black Swan training, which is expensive, I say it's really expensive, and then I'll wait for my counterpart to give me permission to proceed. I always wait. You got to let people give you permission to proceed. A couple of times in the hundreds of times that I've characterized my numbers like that, the worst the person has ever said to me is, well, you told me it was going to be a lot, and it is. And they appreciate the fact that I was honest with them, that I didn't let them get caught off guard. Right. So the anchoring that we teach is more emotional anchoring. I know how your emotions are going to be affected, and I want to increase the chances that you'll collaborate with me. Right.
That's super useful. So are you also saying like you should never like do these highball initial offerings?
Yeah, I don't like that at all. It's problematic for a lot of reasons. It's intentional manipulation, and I'm not a fan of intentional manipulation. It drives deals from the table. Like if somebody extreme anchors me, whether it's an extreme high ball or an extreme low ball, I walk away. And you should have made the deal with me, but you drove me from the table with an extreme ask. Now you'll say, I never lost money on a deal I didn't make. Well, you lost money because you invested time in deals that you drove from the table. You're making fewer deals over the long term. And, one great big deal in a year doesn't equal 10 pretty good deals in a year. And so there's a velocity of deal making, and you just hurt your velocity. Right. Now, there's also the crazy possibility that what you thought was an extreme anchor was low. And you just put yourself in a bad position. I had a student in my class at Georgetown, went in for a job interview, and thought he was making an extreme ask for asking a salary of $110,000. He found out afterwards that all of his colleagues were getting paid $125,000. And by him opening his mouth too soon and trying to set an extreme anchor, he actually cost himself money. He came in too low without finding out the information, what was really going on before he threw the number out there. So throwing an extreme anchor has just got too many problems with it that I don't bother with it, and I don't teach people to bother with it.
So what do you think is, you work with a lot of different companies. What are kind of the most common mistake you see in the private sector when doing like B2B deals?
Well, usually it's extreme anchoring, and then after that, people are always pitching, talking others into deals. I'm going to come up with my value proposition. I'm going to give you all the reasons why you should make the deal. I'm going to talk at you. That diminishes the relationship. Many people think, I've done this so many times, I know where the deal is. There's no, I don't need to take the time to get to know them really, or to gather information. I don't need to gather information. It is what it is. I've done this too many times. You're always leaving money on the table. And you're always creating friction with your counterpart by not taking the time to explore the deal space, by coaxing them into sharing information with you gently. Like if you don't explore the space, you're going to miss the Black Swans. It doesn't matter who you are. There are things you don't know, and that will always cost you money.
So kind of a lack of curiosity and a lack of humbleness, it sounds what you're saying?
I think the two of those combined, that's a great concept. Curiosity and humbleness. Like, yeah, I could learn more. And I'm actually interested in learning more. And also the opposite of both of those pushes the other side away. Like if you're not the least bit humble, it's going to have a negative impact on me. And I'm going to push back. And when I get the opportunity, to be difficult, I will, because you've annoyed me, you've offended me. And
Exactly.
so your entire demeanor is going to cost you money if you're not collaborative.
So if you're a CEO or a sales manager looking to kind of implement this stuff on a larger scale throughout an organization, do you have any thoughts about how do you do that to actually scale this the knowledge from your book and then from the masterclass stuff?
Well, ideally, you prize learning in your culture. You know, you encourage people to learn, to study, to get better. And a lot of people think you can only learn by doing. It's very inefficient, slow way. It's, you know, it's a dinosaurs. You know, dinosaurs learn by doing, and look what happened to them.
Exactly.
So ideally, you know, you encourage, you know, the people in your company, you set a culture of a learning environment. You talk about the books that you read as a leader. People really need to read. Now, interestingly enough, as far as a self-study program, you know, my negotiation course on Masterclass is ridiculously inexpensive and very effective. Because the good thing about that, the learning of Masterclass is it's audio and visual to begin with. People love video and audio to go along with it. And it's really self-paced. Like if you put together a training program for your company, you bring everybody together for one day, for a day of training, one day a year. I mean, that's a scheduled training. What happens if somebody's got a deal they got to work on? I was just doing some training in Dubai last week, as a matter of fact. And the company has placed a very high premium on learning. I mean, they really encouraged everybody to be there. And some of the people had to step out to make deals. You know, if it's a scheduled training, no matter how hard somebody wants to work at learning, if they've got a conference call where a lot of money's at stake, they got to go make that call.
Yeah, there's always a reality.
There's the reality and truths. And so, the masterclass is a great way to show your employees that you prize a learning environment. Give them a chance to learn on their own time. And I'm still shocked to this day at how inexpensive masterclass is. It's one of the most inexpensive training methods out there. I think every company should take advantage of it. And then you find out also your employees that want to learn, that take the time to learn, there's two benefits there. They're going to be happier, which is going to make them better employees. And they're going to be smarter and more profitable for you.
Right.
So you benefit, on the human nature level, and then you benefit on your for-profit business. You're there to make money, and you do both of those things simultaneously with that sort of encouragement. So
speaking about reality, I mean, a lot of businesses find themselves in a tougher environment compared to a year or two back. And a lot of the entrepreneurs and leaders I talk to, are spending a lot of time with angry customers, customers trying to, throw any argument at you to get out of contracts they signed. And I think a lot of these arguments you get are kind of irrational, but they're pressed to cut costs. So do you have any thoughts on how to handle that? I mean, I know you speak about the late night DJ voice to calm people down, but what's your thinking about that?
Well, in point of fact, that's one of the great tools. I mean, my tone of voice is going to have an impact on you as soon as you hear me. And I'm going to want to have a calming influence and both an encouraging influence. Because if you're trying to renegotiate a deal with me, you either might need to, or you might just be testing me because you want to see if you can get a better deal. So the first thing is I got to pass the test gently by being collaborative with you, but not getting angry in return, by being genuinely curious and interested to find out what's going on here. I want to demonstrate myself as a good long-term business partner, somebody who will at least listen to you, will at least hear you out. And then I'm going to try to get a feel for the situation, because you'll probably engage with me in a business relationship that's really profitable for me if you know that I'm going to be there for the long haul. Is this just a transaction for me? Are you only a quarterly number to me? Or do you really want to collaborate with me over the long term? Now, if you're under a lot of pressure and you need a change in the terms, there are other terms that maybe we could change other than price that actually might make the deal better for me. So I'm going to want to explore all the options. If you're talking with me about renegotiating, there's a chance that we can make a better deal that I'll be better off at too. Now, how are you going to tell me about that deal? If I listen to you, if I collaborate with you, if my tone of voice is curious and humble at the same time, and you're going to be encouraged to work with me to make a better deal.
I've experienced this myself numerous times. Like you have a big customer and they're up for renewal and they kind of threaten to we're going to switch vendors if we don't get this. And sometimes what they're asking is unreasonable. So do you have any advice on how to kind of know what's what? Because sometimes it's just a bluff and sometimes it's real.
Exactly. You got to diagnose the situation from the beginning. And the Black Swan skills are designed exactly to do that. If you're coming at me really, really hard, I mean, like you're just attacking. And one of the phrases in the opening story of the book, Never Split the Difference, is the response, how am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to do that? You want me to cut the price, you're gonna walk away. You want a steep discount, you're gonna walk away. I'm going to say to you, how am I supposed to do that? I'm going to say it nicely. I'm not going to say it like, how am I supposed to do that? Which is an accusation, an insulting tone of voice. But my voice is going to be collaborative with you. I want you to take a look at my position.
Right.
Now, your answer is secondary to your reaction. So I'm going to want to get an answer out of you, but I'm really your reaction is that I make you stop and think. I make you stop and think there may be more here than meets the eye. I make you stop and think that I want to collaborate, but I got some real problems here. Now, when I use how am I supposed to do that in an empathic tone of voice, and I've set our relationship is, I've been collaborative all along. I've always been genuinely willing to listen. Somewhere between 8 and 9 times out of 10, you're going to turn around and say, look, okay, all right, yeah, I can see there's some problems here. Let's try to figure this out. You'll instantly go to collaboration.
Right.
Now, there is about 1 time in 10 when you're going to go like, I don't care. You're just going to do it. You're going to do it or I'm going to walk away.
Right, exactly.
What just happened is you just gave me a clearer picture of who you are. You just told me that you don't intend to collaborate with me. You don't really care about me. And the likelihood of us having a great long-term relationship is going to be difficult, and that you're always going to be difficult. Now, I've just gone from wondering whether you're always going to be difficult to knowing. Now, I got the bad news, but you're always better off when you go from wondering to knowing. Now, I've got a decision to make. I'm going to continue to explore with you whether or not there are other terms we can work out. And I'm going to find out how collaborative you are, or I'm going to make the decision at this point now, do I have to cut the price? Or do I start preparing to walk away from you? Because you're never going to change. The best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. Do I want to deal with a customer that always makes life difficult? Now, the customer that always makes life difficult always takes more time.
Exactly.
We often use the phrase at the Black Swan Group, a HAF, which is an acronym for hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. Now, several years ago, I told my sales team, all right, which of our customers qualify as HAFs? Hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. They're always going to be that way. So I would encourage you to not make deals with them anymore. If you feel like it, don't do it. Now, my salespeople are reluctant to walk away from any deal. So what they did was they started measuring how long it took to work with a customer who was always hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. And my sales team told me, these people take at least twice as much time, sometimes 5 times as much time, to make the same amount of profit. What does that mean? The client who's always problematic, you're agreeing to a 50% discount right off the bat if it takes you twice as long to get the business.
Exactly.
And then you say to yourself, wait a minute. I just took a 50% cut in pay? What would happen in my business? Is this person who's always difficult, are they standing in the way of good clients? As it turns out, they are. So as soon as you stop working with the people that take up twice as much time as they should, the good clients are in line behind them, and you get to the good clients faster, and your business actually accelerates by walking away from these types of people.
Yeah, I think there are always those deals that they drag out for so long. So when you get the decision, you're almost as happy to get a no as you are a yes, just to get rid of it.
Just to get rid of them. And then the realities of time, it's not a sin to not get the deal. It's a sin to take a long time to not get the deal.
So as we are recording this, we are in mid-December, and I know a lot of people are out there kind of scrambling to, finish off the fourth quarter and the year. If you need to create urgency or a sense of urgency with a client when there really is none at the client's part, do you have any thoughts on how to do that?
Yeah, I don't like doing that. I think it's possibly very damaging for the long term. Like, I believe in long-term relationships of prosperity, profitability. I want to work with you for a really long time. Now, if I'm trying to create urgency in you, it's a little bit more focused on me. I'm becoming much more transactional, much more selfish. You have less reason to be a great business partner with me over the long term. So we believe very much in a long-term strategy. And if you shift out of quarterly thinking and into long-term relationships, what you'll find is the calendar and the clock begin to take care of themselves for you very well. Your income smooths out. You are better at forecasting. There's every year there's certain dynamics which come up quarterly, whether you like it or not. Things always slow down in mid-December. People are really preparing for, at this point in time, people are really preparing for next quarter, locking their activity for next quarter. And most of the thinking on the calendar, even if it's not driven by the quarter, is 3 to 4 months out. A lot of people, there's a phrase, what's your runway? What's your cash runway? That most business planning globally runs about 3 to 4 months at a time anyway. And there's always seasonal adjustments. What part of the world is your summertime? What part is the late summer? When do things wind down because of natural holidays on the calendar that you happen to live on? You can begin to anticipate these things and plan much more in a way so that you're driven far less by the quarterly aspect of the calendar, and then just get into a 3 or 4 month recurring aspect of the calendar. It makes life a lot more easier to plan for and to live with.
All right. Another thing I wanted to talk about is you talk about calibrated questions.
Right.
So what is that, and how can you use them to your advantage?
Yeah, the calibrated questions are principally what, how, and sometimes why. And they are the open-ended question, the reporter's questions, the interrogatives. Jim Camp called them interrogatives. And list of open-ended questions are basically who, what, when, where, how, and why. Well, the real critical ones are how and what. And what are those designed for? They feel deferential, and they're calibrated, which is why we call them calibrated questions, to have an impact. Now, the word what is calibrated mostly, not exclusively, just mostly to uncover problems. What's the biggest challenge you face? What lies ahead? What very deferentially is designed to uncover problems. Now, how is deferentially designed to design implementation? How am I supposed to do that in point of fact, which I always originally thought of as a way to say no, or to signal to the other side that no was coming? How am I supposed to do that is also a phrase that my son Brandon always called forced empathy. It makes you take a look at my position. But how am I supposed to do that is also an implementation question. It's just like saying, okay, so you want that. How am I supposed to implement? It makes you begin to look at my problems and my obstacles. So how do you want to proceed is an implementation question. How are we going to tackle the problem that we just uncovered when I said, what's the biggest challenge you face? we begin to see how and what are complementary, calibrated questions that really have a very different effect. Now, I did say sometimes why. Why creates defensiveness. You got to be really careful with the word why. Most of the time, if I create defensiveness, it damages our relationship and you don't like it and you don't want to do business with me. Like, why do you want that? You ask me for something and I say, why do you want that? You feel that I'm judging you. You feel accused. You get defensive.
Exactly.
So when would I say why? Well, I would say, why are you talking to me anyway? Why would you do business with me? Now, there's a position where the defensiveness I've created is you are defending our relationship. And it gets you more emotionally invested in it and actually increases our business relationship versus decreasing it when I say, why do you want that? So I'm using why in a very strategic way.
All right, that's very useful. So I had just one final question, actually. So if you want to strike a balance between kind of open and transparent, whilst, you know, protecting your own interests, it's kind of a fine line, and the customer can tell you when you're kind of hedging your bets and just playing games.
Right.
So what would your thoughts be on this?
Don't take yourself hostage. Like, don't put yourself in a position where you can't say no, or you can't disagree. Like, if I refuse to take myself hostage, if I refuse to let my psychological reaction frighten me, if I refuse to let the circumstances feel like I'm a hostage, and it's completely in the eye of the beholder, then I can pretty much tell you anything. And then when I really get sophisticated, like the pressures that I'm under, let's say I'm under deadline. Let's say I'm under a quarterly deadline.
Right.
And I need this deal by the end of the year. What I'm going to say to you right off the bat is like, look, just let me know that you can't do this, because I'm going to have to go someplace else and move on if this isn't going to work for you. I do have a deadline at the end of the year. And if you can't fulfill it, just tell me right now and I'll go away. I can take what some people would perceive as weaknesses and I can make them conditions for accelerating the deal. And, you know, it's December 14th as we're speaking. And I can say, look, we don't have 2 weeks left in the year. We haven't got 16 days left in the year. Christmas is 11 days away. So we actually got to accelerate before the Christmas week. So just, if you can't do this now, and here are the following steps we're going to have to take to make this get done. And each one of the steps is going to take this many days. And so if you can't move now, that's fine with me. But I need to move on now, and I'm going to go find somebody else if you can't. And so that's me being very deferential to you. And instead of my deadline being a problem for trapping me, I use my deadline as a reason to get this done now, because I'm going to walk away right now instead of waiting for December 23rd or December 24th. Because I told you back on the 14th, and everybody has a process, and I know how long this process is going to take. And if you start dragging your feet now, we're not going to get this done. So I'll move on. I'll move on right now. Just tell me and I'll go away.
Yeah, and that's very professional and respectful, I think.
People appreciate, and you know, in the United States, we have a phrase called the straight shooter. And I'm sure there's some version of it in everybody's language. You want somebody to let you know where they're coming from. You want them to know, you want to know the limitations. You want honesty. You just don't want it in a mean, demanding, pushy way.
Exactly. So before we finish off, with just one last question, what would be kind of the one thing, if you just select one thing that you would want the audience to take away from our talk here today?
Look, take the time to make sure people feel heard. It will accelerate the deal. It'll feel like you're wasting time. And make him feel heard within the context of the business relationship. Like, I'm not a big believer in common ground. Common ground doesn't really get you anywhere. It's almost fake empathy. And in point of fact, you know, just because our kids went to the same school doesn't mean that you're going to give in and give me concessions. You might be fascinated by that, but it doesn't mean that you should compromise your position. Let me hear you out as to what's important to you. The time I would have spent on small talk, which isn't going to get us anywhere, If instead I focus on you, I will accomplish the bonding that I'm hoping we both engage in so we have regard for one another, but I'll be gathering information at the same time. So take the time to let people know how you've heard them, and you'll find that your deals are accelerating.
All right. Great stuff. So tons of useful stuff here. Thanks a lot, Chris, for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And I'd love to share with people how they might be able to follow up if they want to learn more. My company's website is blackswanltd.com. We got a lot of information there. But what we really have that's really useful, and you can find links to the book, Never Split the Difference. We've also got a weekly newsletter that's concise and actionable.
All right, nice.
It's short to read. It's only about 700 words. Wherever you are in the world, when you provide us with your email address, you'll get the most recent article on useful negotiation tips emailed to you early in the morning on Tuesday. So that's when your brain is able to absorb useful, usable information, and you can put it to work probably that week. And our newsletter is a gateway to everything we have. We got a gold mine of resources for you. Our newsletter is the gateway to that gold mine.
Great stuff. Thanks again. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was an absolute pleasure having this conversation.
Thank you.